sure Mama is comfortable. Wait, what am I hearing right now?
I think it's music, ma'am.
So Disney finally released their new addition into one of their older franchises on Disney Plus with Phineas and Ferb, the movie Candace Against the Universe. Now, I went into this with a small bit of skepticism, mainly due to the multiple factors. One being the fact that the animation was not looking too hot, since it just looked exactly like the show even after some odd many years had passed. And also because I just felt like we've had enough of Phineas and Ferb. The show ended like 5 years ago with a fairly satisfying ending, and yet here we are with a whole new movie. I just couldn't really see much reason for this film's existence, but after watching it, I can truly say it's fun. Still unnecessary in the grand scheme of things, but still fun. So the main story is about Candace feeling down because she doesn't feel special compared to her brothers, but those feelings are put on hold as she and Vanessa get kidnapped by an alien race and taken to their home planet. There, Candace gets treated as the chosen one for a certain material that she radiates, but things take a turn when she finds out what's really going on, so it's up to Phineas, Ferb, Dr. Doofenshmirtz, and the gang to go rescue them. Right off the bat, you already can see that this is treading familiar ground. It's practically the Queen of Mars episode they already did, just extended, and that kinda was something in the back of my mind as I was watching. It was just something that just felt like, I've seen this before, you've done this. I kept feeling like this was too been there, done that, especially for a new movie. But god damn it won me over simply by just being fun and hilarious, honestly. I legit had a lot of fun with this movie. The writing is the same as you would remember from the show, from well-executed jokes to great fourth wall breaks, one of which is a total gutbuster and I dare not spoil. It is such a good movie to just sit back and relax with. I love the interactions between Phineas and the gang. They just have these fun moments as they traverse the stars and planets together that's just really enjoyable. There's moments between Isabella and Dr. Doofenshmirtz that I didn't know I needed until I got them. Even though he really doesn't need to be in the movie, but we'll get to that. Otherwise, it's just pure gold. A big thing I truly enjoyed about this was surprisingly Candace. I'll admit, I'm not the biggest fan of hers due to the fact that she's just such a total snitch and her character didn't really seem to evolve much throughout the series. It never felt like she changed much by the end of the show. With this movie, it finally gave her a true arc. She has a true revelation about herself. She does something in this film that she's done before on other episodes, but here it has a great sense of introspection. It makes her feel complete as a character. It's just something I really enjoyed about this and honestly put her on my sympathetic side because I get why she feels like this. I get why she wants to always bust her brothers throughout the summer. Now, I believe a friend of mine named Tariq, he's a bit Toonrific on this stuff, has some words of wisdom on this front.
So, I've had some time to think about it, and I think I see Candace Against the Universe much like how I saw Toy Story 4. Both Toy Story 3 and Last Day of Summer were really well-rounded finales that gave you the impression that, you know what? This is it. This is the end. There doesn't need to be any more of this. Then, years later, something else happens and you're like, huh? But much like I saw Toy Story 4, I think Candace Against the Universe is like the Phineas and Ferb epilogue. Everyone has already learned all of their lessons, but there's still something one of the characters could pick up from their experiences over the years outside of the main plot. In Toy Story, it was Woody. Here, it's Candace. One interesting thing that this film does is that it treats Phineas, Candace, and even Ferb to a varying degree as real people who consider their actions and how they affect others. For the sake of hilarity in the animated series, everyone just kind of went about their day with their goals without noticing the impact that they're having on each other. But here they step back and look around them, which is really cool to see. I was a little worried when I saw that this movie took place in like the middle of the series, and that aspect does kind of make it messy. Characters that are supposed to know each other act like they never met. There's references to some things that kind of confuse where the timeline is, but most importantly, it screws up the arc of the film.
It definitely has a few blotches in it, That whole thing I mentioned about Candace gets undermined by the fact that the film is supposed to be in the middle of the series, which all the development Candace gets is completely pointless now. The finale to the series contradicts the whole thing for her. Now, as a standalone, it works great, but you remember it's not, and that just hurts the film big time. It's just something that feels like, wow, this character goes through a major thing and it puts me on her side. Then you remember, oh, all of that development gets forgotten. Jesus freaking Christ.
Without giving too much away, Candace learns a lesson in this film that reverts back to normal by the time the last day of summer special happens. So if you're a real Phineas fan, fitting this movie into the continuity is like fitting a square into a round peg. If you could get over that, and it's kinda easy to, it really is just as fun as Man was saying.
Another gripe I do have is that the middle can drag a bit. You get a small sense that the plot has paused for something we don't really need to see. It can still be entertaining, but you might be thinking, do we need this here? It's not terrible, but it's just something to keep in mind.
First time I saw it, I watched it with a few friends and immediately said if I saw this by myself, I probably would have cried. Then I saw it alone and cried twice. Say what you want about me, I'm a man of my word. The emotionality works, just not when you consider it as part of the series as a whole. The songs are kind of forgettable, which hurts the most. I probably only like 3 of them, but I don't know, they might have to grow on me. The Doofin' Isabella one is probably my least favorite, but that might just be because all of their stuff in the movie in general is like my least favorite part because of how undercooked and forced it feels. However, I haven't been able to shut up about this joke all week.
The next thing to bring up is definitely the villains. Jesus, are these some of the most incompetent villains I have ever seen. They destroy any sense of tension because you know they are bad at their jobs. A particular element they need for their goal is something so common that you wonder, how did they not figure out how to get it, especially with the fact of how they captured Candace and Vanessa in the first place. You're just like, Jesus, you guys pretty much were there. You had it. What happened? Now, another mutual of mine has a few bones to pick with this film as well, that being the Wacky Deli.
Going into a watch party for Candace vs. the Universe was the most daunting experience I've had with this franchise. I thought I'd have to hate it in a sense. Between all the animation errors and the almost blindingly positive reception to it prior to it coming out, I was relieved when it turned out to be a solid product. Right around the halfway mark, I was sure they were going to bungle the narrative they were piecing together, but as it turns out, they hit it exactly where they needed to, which made me more forgiving towards its lesser flaws. All that time I had to spend sitting through the Family Guy-esque long pauses and jokes was pretty cringy, for lack of a better word. I appreciate the experimentation, but I think there was only one time where it actually amounted to a successful payoff. Every other time kind of just piled onto the pacing issues of the film, which in general was pretty sporadic. It's not like this team can't handle a different type of adventure, but at several points the film was just kind of either meandering or speeding through events at the worst times. I think the amount of guest stars can be a bit overwhelming. I know since it's a movie they had to try to do it big, but for as funny as some of these were, others just felt plain unnecessary. If you were waiting for Tiffany Haddish to have a cameo, only to find out what her role actually was, you'd either be confusingly bemused or tiredly irritated.
Another thing is that Vanessa becomes a total non-entity in the middle of the film. You might have forgotten I mentioned that she's even in this film in the first place. That's because even the movie kind of forgot her. I do feel they could have implemented her into the story a bit more rather than her be there for the beginning, fuck off for the middle, and then come back into play for the end. Just as well, both her and Doofenshmirtz don't need to be in the movie. He's just shoehorned in, and it's obvious with how unneeded he is in this. He has fun moments, but you do think, wow, he really did not help this plot whatsoever. He did not need to be here at all.
Last thing I want to talk about is the animation. So I noticed 3 animation changes in the film. I think it might have been done by 3 different teams or studios. The first act is by far the worst. Really thick outlines, movements that don't seem like They understand the show's design philosophies. The staging's all there. These are nice compositions with really big scope, like a film should be. But I don't know, I'm really picky with my Candace drawings in general, and there's like no good ones here for a while. Then they get to the planet in the second act, and that's where it looks the best. The colors are really theatrical, the line weight is thinner, and look at this shot. The way they play with the space in this part of the movie is pretty amazing. This is definitely what a Phineas and Ferb film is supposed to look like. The third act's alright. It's kind of a mix of both styles. There's still some nice drawings, some nice shots. Sometimes it gets nasty again. The action is definitely A1. And the score, man, Phineas and Ferb's background music has never sounded so massive before.
General animation errors aside, the line width problem was really distracting. I heard others thought this was flash animated because for at least a quarter of the film, everyone had thick enough outlines to make Butch Hartman jealous. It's a shame because the background work really flexed to create an immersive experience, but you're taken right out of it once you start counting which scenes were retakes. I didn't get as much out of the character interactions as I thought I would. Everyone made a big deal out of Baljeet's 15 seconds in the spotlight, which I don't think he really got. The Flint Fletchers were understandably the consistent focus throughout the movie, but usually the other kids bring the thunder and drop choice dialogue, and I don't think I got much of that here. All in all, while it resonated more with me than Last Day of Summer did, I don't know how much I'll remember this one. I thought it was totally serviceable. It's clearly a part of that post-show legacy, though. It's a good epilogue that didn't have a reason to exist, and while it directly invalidates its metal, chronologically speaking, you'll probably get something out of it if you were just yearning for those last nuggets of development. Make of that what you will.
Candace Against the Universe is fun. Now, go back to listening to my friend talk with his brain. Maybe, I don't know, I forget if he puts on the reverb for these movie thoughts.
Nigga.
This movie is definitely not the best thing to come out of the Phineas and Ferb franchise, but it's far from the worst. It's a bit rough in some areas, but can shine in others. Story-wise, certain characters needed more to do, but it can give genuine moments to other characters that feel needed. The sense of danger is low due to massive incompetence on the aliens' parts. The animation could have used some touching up, especially for a new film. It shouldn't have moments that look exactly like the old series. The gags and jokes tend to be the biggest highlight for this movie and allows for an all-around good time. It falls under totally unnecessary, but an enjoyable non-necessity. If you just want fun gags with some heartfelt moments, then it's definitely worth a watch.